All right, so we're going to tear apart this tiny 8-line poem by Robert Frost. And what we're going to find is that, hiding just beneath the surface, there's something kind of dangerous, something really profound. It's like this tiny little rebellion against despair.
And this is where Frost drops us right in. We begin in poison, not, a gentle walk in the woods. This one line immediately sets the tone. It's stark, it's serious, and it's basically a warning sign that says, hey, we're going way deeper than your high school English class.
Okay, so what's the actual story here? The event itself it's incredibly simple. You've got a crow, it lands on a branch, gives it a little shake, and a bit of snow, this dust of snow, falls on the guy standing underneath. And boom. Just like that, in that one instant, something inside him just flips. A day that he'd already chalked up as a total loss is suddenly, part of it is saved. It's this weird little glitch in the matrix of his sadness. But to really get this moment, you've got to understand where Frost was coming from. This poem wasn't born out of some, I had a bad day kind of sadness. No, this was a man forged in absolute personal catastrophe. I mean, look at this. He buried 4 of his 6 kids, had to commit his own sister to an asylum. He watched his wife lose her mind, and he himself wrestled with suicidal thoughts. So when this guy writes about a change of heart, believe me, it's coming from a place of profound, almost unimaginable darkness.
And that's why this is so important. This is not just a cute little nature moment. This isn't a Disney movie. What you're seeing is a man who has literally stood on the brink, and he gets brushed by the very symbols of death. And somehow, impossibly, it brings him relief. The whole poem is this encounter with the machinery of death, and that encounter, somehow, saves him.
So, to really dig into this, we have to look at the ingredients Frost picked. And let me tell you, they are brutal. He absolutely loads this tiny 8-line poem with some of the heaviest, most negative symbols you can imagine. And it starts with the creature that kicks the whole thing off. First up, the crow. Come on, in our culture, is a crow ever just a bird? No way. It's a scavenger. It's a bad omen. It's the thing you see after the battle is over. It's a messenger for the dead. So the very thing that causes this change is a literal, flying symbol of death. And where's this crow hanging out? In a hemlock tree. Now, this is not just some random pine tree. Hemlock is famous for one thing and one thing only. It's a deadly poison. It's the stuff that killed Socrates, a state-sanctioned execution. So the stage for this tiny moment of salvation is literally the green executioner. And finally, what actually falls on him? It's not these big, beautiful, gentle snowflakes. Frost is so specific. He calls it a dust of snow. Think about that word for a second. Dust. What is dust? It's what's left over when something is gone. It's the residue, the scraped off remains. It's basically the ash from winter's dead body. Okay, so this leads us to the big central puzzle of this entire poem, the paradox at its heart. Why? Why on earth did these 3 symbols of death, the crow, the poison tree, the dust, why do they come together to save the day? How does this unholy trinity of darkness somehow create a spark of light?
And this is the poem's first real act of rebellion. It just refuses to lie about the darkness. It doesn't pretty it up or pretend it's not there. Instead, the poem suggests something radical. The cure is to just let the darkness land, to let it physically touch you. The poison itself becomes the antidote.
But look, the symbols are only half the game here. Now we've got to talk about the poem's structure, because the way it's built is just as critical and just as tricky as the words themselves. What Frost does is he builds this perfect, deadly little trap for us, the readers. If you just look at the form, it's so simple it's almost childish, right? Perfect rhymes, a steady, predictable rhythm. It feels like a nursery rhyme. And our brains love that kind of order. It's calming, it feels safe. But that's the trap. The structure lures you in, makes you feel all cozy, and while your guard is down, it slips you the poison. You get to the end of these 8 lines, you feel a little bit better, and you don't even realize you've just willingly swallowed a dose of hemlock. All right, now let's take this one step further. Let's get into what is probably the most radical way to read this poem, an interpretation that says this wasn't an accident at all. This was intentional. I mean, what if it wasn't just random? What if the crow, acting as this kind of agent of the natural world, saw this guy's despair and chose to do something?
Asking that one question changes everything. The poem stops being a story about dumb luck and becomes a story about a strange, impossible, almost scary kind of mercy. So the theory goes something like this. The speaker is having a terrible day. He's standing under a poison hemlock tree, maybe unconsciously seeking an end to it all. The crow sees this, and it intervenes, not to kill him, but maybe to stop him from doing it himself. It gives him the smallest possible dose of death, just a little sprinkle of dust from the poison tree. And that tiny, tiny encounter is enough to satisfy that dark urge, that death drive, just for a moment. His mood lifts because that little part of him that wanted everything to end was just given a tiny taste, and it was enough. So, 100-year-old poem. Why should we care? Why does this matter today? Well, because this little poem is actually, believed or not, incredibly rebellious in our modern world. It's like a ritual that flies in the face of everything we're told about how to manage our feelings.
Think about it. Frost's version of salvation is something you don't ask for, you don't earn, and here's the kicker, it's incomplete. It only saves some part of the day. It's about being totally open to a random accident. Now compare that to today. Our wellness culture, with its mood tracking apps and its algorithms, it promises total control, total optimization. It wants to get rid of every shadow, medicate every bad feeling away. Frost's poem is screaming the opposite. It's saying there's value, real value, in just letting the shadow land on you. And that's really the core transaction happening here. The day is saved, well, part of it, not because anything in the world actually got better, nothing changed. It was saved because for one split second, something dark wasn't fought off, it wasn't overanalyzed, it wasn't medicated, it was just allowed to land. And the heart, completely against all reason, just said, thank you. You know, in a world that is constantly screaming at us to fight off every bad feeling, to optimize every single second of our lives, this tiny poem from Robert Frost offers a truly dangerous, truly radical alternative. It leaves us with a question. What if, sometimes, the only way to save what's left of the day is to stop fighting, stop running, and just let the poison land?